So welcome, dear friends. I don't know whether you can hear me. If you can, just put your hands up a little bit, just to say you can. I think we'll try and remove the screen from the main thing. I don't know if we can share. How do I? Oh, okay. Wonderful. I will try and maximize my screen. Great. So, friends, my name is Shantum. I'm from Dehradun, and this is our first virtual Sangha meeting for Bodhi Purnima. This is going to be a grand experiment in some ways. Luddites, and so let's hope it works. And for the next couple of hours together, I'll start with 3 sounds of the bell. In our tradition, we think of the sound of the bell like the voice of the Buddha calling us back to our true home. And so the true home is in the present moment, the here and now. So I'll invite 3 sounds of the bell. Please just listen attentively to the sound and let that penetrate into your sound consciousness. And then after that, I'll maybe mention 1 or 2 more things. With the second bell, maybe you can use that awareness to come back to your breath. And the third sound, you can come back and bring a slight smile, little smile on your face, which will actually happen. Listen, listen, the wonderful sound of the bell brings me back to my true home. Bring your awareness to your breath, breathing in and breathing out with the sound. And the gentle half smile of awareness, breathing in, I know I'm alive, and breathing out, I smile to life. So welcome again, dear friends. In 1997, Thich Nhat Hanh had come to India, and he stayed at a place called Sanskriti Kendra, Anandagram, which is a center for arts run by a man called O.P. Jain. And from 1998, O.P. Jain invited us to celebrate Buddha Purnima, the full moon of Buddha, every year. So this would have been the 22nd year that we would be celebrating in Delhi at Sanskriti Kendra. Unfortunately, because of course, the COVID-19 pandemic, many of us, including us, are on an enforced retreat in our homes or wherever we are in the world. And so, as I was saying, this is also an interesting opportunity to connect with people outside of Delhi. I know that many people from around the world are connecting today, and I'm really happy to see some faces which I can see on my screen, but people from, America, England, and of course, a lot from India, from Bangalore, from Guwahati, from Kerala. So it's wonderful to have this much larger community coming together because of this, unfortunate, actually, incident, but that's what's creating an opportunity to make it bigger. I think we know that the coronavirus is not discriminating. It's affecting all of us: rich, poor, middle class, white, brown, black, red, yellow, even people with orange hair. All of us are being affected in this way. And I think we can learn this deep teaching of the Buddha's practice or understanding of non-discrimination or interconnectedness in this. If we don't wake up now, I don't know when we will, and this is really a wake-up call. So if we can really realize that great teaching of the Buddha, which is not only a collective awakening, but the collective awakening comes through a collective suffering. And so we have to realize the virus has not come from nowhere. It is obviously causes and conditions, and part of it has been our own human arrogance that has created a disconnection from nature, from animals, which may have created all this. And the Buddha, of course, at that time, we didn't have all this technology. And so the Buddha was very, very close to nature. We have many, many stories of his informing us about his closeness and his in a way, compassionate understanding and relationship with nature, with animals, with trees. And so this evening, we thought we are a small community in India called Ahimsa Trust. We are people who've been inspired by Thich Nhat Hanh's, the Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings. And this Ahimsa Trust actually represents Thich Nhat Hanh in India. And many of us will be sharing this evening in terms of our own practice, some readings, some teachings. And there are a few of us behind the scenes like Manish and Charu and Shalini who are doing the tech stuff. So let's see how it works. And also we've been noticing this time that there's a great need for many, many people to know about meditation, have a slightly more of an inward understanding what is solitude and how to use solitude in an advantageous way. And so we've been offering every Saturday at 6 o'clock in the evening, Indian time, a series of meditations and teachings which are open to anyone. So if anybody wants to join, please do. And this will carry on while we are on the COVID-19 pandemic. It won't happen this Saturday, but it will happen again on May the 16th. So just to give you a sense of what we're going to be doing today, we have a little program where we'll start with an incense offering, which is what is done traditionally when we start any sort of ceremony. But of course, this evening, because we're going to be celebrating the Buddha's birth, awakening, and his Mahaparinirvana, this is a time to do that. And then we will probably learn a little bit about the significance of the Bodhi Tree. And you will see a tree right behind me, which is actually a child, a great-great-grandchild, well, the child of the present Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya, which was gifted to us. So we are waiting to plant it on the meditation center here in Dehradun. So we'll learn a bit about the significance of the tree. We'll do some watering of the tree. We'll be practicing, we'll understand the significance of Buddha Purnima itself. And then, of course, practice some guided sitting meditation, practice some mindful movements, hear the story of the life of the Buddha, do some practicing of eating meditation when we will enjoy our orange or whatever fruit you have with you at that time. And then we'll have a short offering, a short teaching on offerings, including the offering of light, and end by sharing a poem by the Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh on the full moon, and a plum village song about no coming and no going. So I hope that this whole program, which we've sort of structured, will take about 2 hours. So we'll enjoy each other's company in this time, and of course, enjoy your own company. Just be with the practice, be with yourselves, and really feel the sense of being children of the Buddha and understanding that this teaching, which has come to us 2,600 years in a direct lineage, is informing us at this time of COVID-19 how to overcome suffering and how to develop compassion and also wisdom, but also, of course, the sense of happiness, both for yourself and for our community. So at this point, I'm going to invite Mala Tandon, who's in charge, who looks after a lot of the Noida Sangha outside Delhi, for a song. She has a beautiful voice. They offer the song of the incense offering, and I will offer the incense behind me to the Buddha statue right behind me here. So let's see how this works. Yeah, so somebody might change the screen and put Mala on, and I will, or whatever they do. I'm going to invite one sound of the bell just to transition from this to that.
In gratitude we offer this incense throughout space and time to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May it be fragrant as earth herself, reflecting careful efforts, wholehearted awareness, and the fruit of understanding slowly ripening. May we and all beings be companions of Buddha and Bodhisattvas. May we awaken from forgetfulness and realize our true home.
So, dear friends, we would like Ajir Bhai, or Ajir Vidya is one of the teachers in our tradition, a member of the Order of Interbeing, and he looks after the Gurgaon Sangha, and he was going to be sharing a little bit about the significance of Buddha Purnima for about 5 minutes. So if somebody could zoom Ajir in, from wherever he is. Ajay, we can see your fan. Yes. Okay. Ajay, can you hear us?
Yeah, thank you, Shantam. In 5 minutes, very briefly, I'm going to share the significance of the Buddha Purnima.
Ajay, could you come more into the frame? We can hardly see you. We can see more of the fan than you.
Yeah, now it's okay?
Oh yes, much better, much better.
Okay. I'm holding my phone. Yeah, so very briefly, I'm going to share the significance of Buddha Purnima. Why it is so significant for the Buddhist concept. This is the day when Siddhartha was born. This is the day when Siddhartha got enlightenment and became Buddha. And this is the day when he got the parinirvana. So on this day, in all these events, now we really need to appreciate and understand that his birth was very unique. On this full moon, he took the birth. He walked 7 steps, 7 flowers came at each step, and he proclaimed, I am supreme in this world. Then he went to Bodh Gaya and sat under the tree, and he decided that till his flesh melts, bones become ashes, he will sit and see melt. And he himself said that what he got is peaceful, profound, non-aberration, and clear light, which is like nectar dharma. And on this full moon, he took the parinirvana. In the case of the Buddha, we don't say nirvana, it is parinirvana, because he has decided that he is going to help all the sentient beings so that everyone can move to the enlightenment. Well, I think these 2 words, Buddha, Purnima, in Hindi or in Sanskrit, the Purnima is the full moon. Now let's try to understand what is the significance of this full moon, the rising moon. It is not mentioned about the descending moon. The moon rises and it becomes full. And it is so full that nothing can be added to this and nothing can be subtracted from it. And the moonshine is there throughout the earthly planet without any discrimination. That is the external light which full moon shines forth. And when we are really talking of the Buddha, I would say that it's a kind of inner light which Siddhartha was not having, but he traveled through the path of gate, paragate, parasangate, and he attained that light of the wisdom. This is a kind of inner light. So that light, like the full moon, is full because we can't take out anything from that, and we can't test because it is so full. And in that light, the Buddha finds that all the sentient beings are like his children, as if he is like a universal mother. Now, question may come up, how do we know that he attained that light? He was so luminous from inside. There's a story, after the enlightenment, he was sitting and there was a merchant who was passing through. He looked at him and he found that he was so radiant. He went and asked, are you God? He said that no. Then he said, are you a demigod? He said, no. Then he said that like an emperor, they are very shining forth. He said that, are you an emperor? He said that no. Then he asked the question, who are you? He said, I'm awakened. So the whole journey is that of the awakening. And this awakening is from where? It is from the ignorance to the omniscience. It is knowing the full potential of the human or the living being life? Well, I think that is what symbolizes when we are really saying Buddha Purnima. Now the question may arise that do we all have that potential, or are we all potential Buddhas? Buddha has said that all the living beings are imbued with Buddha nature, Buddha potential, or the inner wisdom. They are used synonymously. And on this full moon, if you are really seeing, I think it's a reminder for us, and we get reminded that we have that Buddha potential, and we can also be like Buddha, because ultimately there's no difference between our mind and the Buddha's mind. So with this brief, I really wish all the viewers and all the sentient beings of this earthly planet to realize their Buddhahood, so that the world on this earthly planet will become very peaceful and loving. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ajib Bhai. You can now see the fan again. It's very poignant. So I'm going to invite the sound of the bell, because I feel what Ajib Bhai shared is very important. And just to let that sink into us before we go into sharing about the significance of the tree and watering the tree. Yes, it's wonderful that we all have the potential of being awake, as Ajib Bhai shared, and we have the practice, we have the path, and when we do it together, it's much easier. But we also have reminders like the tree, who was a partner in this with the Buddha, and Anita, who is part of the Central Delhi Sangha, who is actually one of the key facilitators of the Central Delhi Sangha, will be sharing a little bit about the symbolism of the tree and watering the tree. And straight after that, we'll have the tree here, which is, as I mentioned, a baby of the Bodhi tree in Delhi, in Bodh Gaya, will be watered by Anamika. Anamika is a young girl who actually planted the tree at Sanskriti Kendra, which is where O.P. Jain had hosted us in 2005, the year after she was born. She did that with O.P. Jain. Now, fortunately, she happens to be in the same house as me, because she's also my daughter. And so she's been requested to water the tree after Anita speaks. Thank you.
Thank you, Shantum, and greetings and welcome to friends from all over the world. I see we have 288 participants, and what a glorious group that is. The significance of watering of the Bodhi tree is linked to the life of the Buddha, as well as our own journey as seekers to find the path. The Bodhi tree is called the Ficus religioso, and in India is also known as the peepal tree. It is the most sacred tree for Buddhists, as it was under this tree in Bodh Gaya that Siddhartha attained enlightenment. Buddhists believe that the Bodhi tree symbolizes wisdom, compassion, awareness, and the boundless potential within each of us to make the journey to achieve all of this. A tree starts as a seed and grows to bear buds, branches, blossoms, and fruit. Similarly, as individuals, we undergo various stages of self-growth to reach our true potential. Just as the tree brings life-giving oxygen and nourishment to the environment around it, we aim not only for self-growth, but also for a symbiotic relationship with those around us and the universe itself. That is the true realization of infinite potential. The Bodhi tree is often depicted as growing out of its own reflection. It is said that the tree's reflective image represents the same limitless potential we strive to achieve in our lifetime. Through meditation, the most spiritual act of reflection brings forth this awareness that invites enlightenment. As the Buddha did beneath the Bodhi tree by sitting still and befriending the self through deep inner reflection, we stop searching for what we want and become aware of what we need. The Bodhi tree is a true lesson in equilibrium. Its resilient roots go deep into the soil to draw nourishment from the waters below. Its branches reach high and proud, seeking sunshine and a place amidst the sky. This dichotomy represents the yin and the yang of the self, often being pulled in two different directions, while striving for a balance. If we trust the strength of our powerful roots as we reach for the sky, we will remain grounded with no fear of the unknown. While the Bodhi tree represents many profound and complex notions, it is also known for its release of the positive and playful vibes. One of the lessons is to let go, to embrace the now, and also have fun. When the wind blows through its branches, the Bodhi tree dances, and it invites us to dance with it. In Buddhism, water symbolizes life. It is the purest form of food and the element in nature that carries everything with it. Water also symbolizes purity, clarity, calmness, and reminds us of the need to cleanse our minds and reach a state of purity. On Buddha Purnima today, Buddhists around the world celebrate the full moon with various rituals. One of these, as Shantum said, is pouring water on the Bodhi tree. This is done to keep the tree alive in the summer heat of May, when the days are long and the nights are short. The earth is dry, and Buddhists want to make sure that the tree does not die. Therefore, the pouring of the water is also an expression of respect for the Buddha and his close association with the tree. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anita. Thank you so much for sharing the wisdom, not just of your wisdom, but the wisdom of the tree. I will ask Anamika to pour some water. I will get up also so we can see her pouring in. I will also pour some with her. So, Anamika, would you like to pour the water? Pour some. Please pour them. It's wonderfully nourishing to water the tree. Actually, it feels like you're nourishing yourself in the same process as nourishing the tree. And you know, we all need our different food. The tree needs some water. We need water too. And I think it's a wonderful act if you can do this every day. Just water something every day. It just gives us a great sense of connection and nourishment. And it's so nice just to see. These are in India. Right now, the people tree or the Bodhi tree has lost its leaves and the new leaves have just come out. So it's just a transition time. It's never without leaves. It's just always the leaves are leaving and the new leaves are coming. And so these are all the new leaves that have just come out in the last few days. I will invite one sound of the bell, and then we will have a practice of sitting meditation for about 10, 15 minutes, which I will lead. I think Kamala has started sharing her screen. Kamala, would you mind not sharing your screen? Kamala's got a screen going, so I think her screen is being shared by mistake. Yeah, okay, thanks. And actually, somebody said that maybe there's some bandwidth problem. So those of us who are not sharing, if we put our videos off, then it may be simpler. Then we don't, then maybe the voice will carry easier. And then later we'll put it on again later. So those of us who are not sharing at all, otherwise people who are going to share, please do keep your videos on. Most of you are familiar with meditation of some form or the other. We practice in the Zen tradition, again, as I said, of the Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh. And one of our main practices comes from the Anapanasati Sutra, the full awareness of breathing. And this is where we use the awareness of breath to anchor the body and mind into the present moment. So I'll give a little bit of guidance like that, just the awareness. It's a way of coming back to your breath, coming back to your body. And today, because it's Buddha Purnima, I thought we would do a practice of actually visualizing the Buddha. It's a practice that has been going on for over 2,000 years. It's often used in many, many Buddhist communities around the world, and I know in Vietnam, where people imagine the Buddha sitting in front of them and then bowing to the Buddha. So I might ask you to join your palm. If you feel uncomfortable, you don't have to. And then it's actually a deep practice of interbeing or shunyata or emptiness, this understanding of non-duality, where we say in our practice, the one who bows and the one who is bowed to are both by nature empty. And therefore the communication between them is inexpressibly perfect, which basically means that the Buddha cannot exist without us, and we cannot exist without the Buddha. So we inter-are in that process of the practice. And also, it is not a buying where we are asking a supplication. It's not to feel weak and needy, but instead it's to fill us with that confidence and capacity to be awakened, like both Anita shared and Ajit shared, that we have that potential of awakening. And one other small practice that might come into it is this practice of smiling. Of course, there's 70 muscles in our face, and they get, there's a sort of, even if you don't feel like smiling, you might just smile with this yoga of smiling, which will actually give you a sense of well-being, because different types of hormones get released, you know, oxytocin and dopamine and serotonin. So it's quite an interesting practice. So I will then invite the bell from time to time, and I'll just share a little bit of a guidance. And if you want, you can close your eyes and just sit comfortably. Try and sort of keep your back straight if you can. If you're sitting on a cushion, you can cross your legs. If you're sitting on a chair, just sit in a comfortable, dignified way. Your feet can be on the ground, eyes can be closed or half open. Your hands can, you know, rest gently on your lap or your knees. And just feel a sense of ease as we practice for the next 10, 15 minutes. So let the sound of the bell penetrate into your consciousness. Bring your awareness to your breathing, just a natural breath. Breathing in, know that you're breathing in, and breathing out, know that you're breathing out. Find it easier, you might want to say in with the in-breath, out with the out-breath. And just focus only on the breath. Just focus on the whole length of the breath, the beginning of the in-breath, the end of the in-breath, the beginning of the out-breath, the end of the out-breath. You might find it easier to focus on your abdomen, just feeling the rise and fall of the abdomen with each in-breath and each out-breath. You could put your hand on your abdomen if it makes it easier, just feeling the rise and fall. And you can notice if it's a long breath or a short breath. Being attentive to the quality of the breathing, noting whether it's getting deeper, getting slower. Just enjoying your breathing. It's really enjoying your breathing. Noting how it's infusing life into every cell of your body. And with the in-breath, just being aware of the whole body. And with the out-breath, relaxing the whole body. Aware of the whole body, relaxing the body. And breathing in, feeling that sense of happiness, that we have an opportunity to breathe, to meditate. Breathing out, smiling at that opportunity. And now for the visualization. We see the Buddha sitting in front of us, each one of us, in a sitting posture. And with that, I breathe in. And joining my palms, I breathe out. Buddha sitting, joining palms. See the Buddha in whatever form you like. Human form, the tree. Just see him sitting there with you, in front of you. And now seeing the Buddha in me, I breathe in. And seeing myself in the Buddha, I breathe out. Buddha in me in the Buddha. Seeing the boundary between me and the Buddha disappear as the Buddha smiles, I breathe in. And seeing the boundary between the one who respects and the one who is respected disappear in me, I breathe out. The Buddha smiles, no boundary. I smile, no boundary. Seeing myself bowing deeply to the Buddha, I breathe in. Seeing the strength of the Buddha in me, I breathe out. Bowing deeply to the Buddha, strength of Buddha in me. And again, bring your awareness back to your breath. Continue to bring that awareness to the breath, the in-breath, the out-breath, the whole length of the breath, the quality of the breathing, and enjoying your breathing as we sit, as I invite the bell to close this particular meditation section. So with the sound, small sound of the bell, you can bow, and then you can just Also massage your face and your legs. So I hope you enjoyed that practice. Some of you may have done it for the first time, but it is a very deep practice. You can really realize your non-self nature with the Buddha. And as Ajit explained, it is actually the awakening, the potential of awakening. It doesn't have to be the Buddha always a human being, but as the potential of awakening. And to know that capacity is within us and also reflected in whatever we come across, come within in our experience. So I sometimes think the tree is an awakened being. The tree is just a tree. It's not trying to be anything else. And so if we can be that, just who we are, that is a sign of awakening, of realizing that there's a sense of just being, but in a profound awareness. When the Buddha was asked, by many people, what do your monks do and what do your students do? And he said, well, they walk and this, sit and this, eat. And today we thought that we would practice a bit like the Buddha said, because when the person said, but everyone walks and eats and sits, he said, but the Buddha said, but when my students walk, they know they're walking. When they sit, they know they're sitting. When they eat, they know they're eating. When they lie down, they know they're lying down. And when they move their arms like this, they know they're moving their arms like this. So today we are going to practice for the next 5 minutes something called mindful movements. It's a practice which is helpful also for those of us who've been sitting for some time. We might want to stretch our legs. So Indra Uninayar, who also is the facilitator of the Sangha in Gurgaon, will share some of the practices of mindful movements. And if you want, and I would suggest if you get up and you can do them with her as she instructs us to go through them. So I think we'll move the spotlight to Indra. Thanks, Indra.
Thank you, Shantum. Welcome, dear friends. Thank you, dear Sangha. I will talk a little bit about mindful movements before we begin them. Mindful movements are a daily practice to help us take care of our bodies with gentleness and with kindness. This practice helps us remain in touch with our bodies to unite our mind, body, and breath. It's, in a sense, a physical element of meditation. We do each movement with awareness of our breathing in and breathing out, as well as our action. We do this in a relaxed, calm way with balance and flexibility. As we breathe in, we enjoy our movement, and as we breathe out, we smile. We open up our bodies to the space around us, to the sky above and the earth below. We shall now begin the mindful movements. I'll request all of you to stand up and follow my movements. I will say in and out as I breathe in and breathe out, and I request all of you to follow the same. We'll do 4 different mindful movements and 4 counts of each. They're extremely simple. You raise your hands in front of you in the first one. Raise your hands above, sideways, and then we move up and down, and I will demonstrate. So it's not difficult. I request all of you to and get ready for your mindful movement. So the first movement, in, out. In, raise your hands in front. Out. In, out. And in, out. The next one, we take our hands all the way up, reaching up to the sky. In, out, smile. In, out. In, out. In, out. Now you can bring your hands to your shoulders. In, out. In, out. In, out. In, out. Separate your feet a bit and please bend to the floor as much as you can. In, your hands all the way up. Out to the earth. In, out, smile. In, out. In, out. You can come back to your position, seats. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed them.
No, thank you so much, Indra. That was wonderful. And I think this is what, with using the breath with your movement, allows the breath and the breath anchors the mind and body. So the mind can't be doing something else. It becomes a breathing mind. And then when you're moving, it becomes a moving with the body. So your body and mind come together through the breath. So it's wonderful just as a practice. So when we do it slowly, like Indra was sharing, it's a wonderful practice to build that awareness, that water, that seed of mindfulness in everything we're doing, including every move we're making. So I will invite to sound the bell before we move into a life story of the Buddha. So, dear friends, I'm going to, for the next 40 minutes or so, we're going to share about the life of the Buddha and the story about his life and some of the teachings. And I will tell some of the stories in the context of a slideshow I've got. And a lot of the photographs we've taken over the last 30 years when we've been going on pilgrimage. And some of you who are actually on this show, on this, celebratory Zoom, have been on this journey. So it may be like a journey for you going to these places. I've been going for more than 30 years, both as a practice and now for right livelihood. And I find it's just a wonderful practice the Buddha suggested. So while I'm doing this, in between, there'll be 5 of our friends from different sanghas who will be sharing excerpts from this absolutely brilliant rendition of the Buddha's life by Thich Nhat Hanh, called Old Path, White Clouds. And then there'll be Vivek, who will be sharing on the birth. He's part of the Gurugram Sangha. And then there's Ananya, who is actually in Guwahati in Assam. And she was part of the Noida Sangha, and so she'll be sharing. And then Tina, who's part of the Central Delhi Sangha, the facilitator and teacher at the Delhi Sangha. And then Poonam Sahi was the teacher of this, one of the teachers of the Central Delhi Sangha and a facilitator there. And then Rita will be sharing on the Mahaparinirvana. She's the facilitator of the Noida Sangha. And a number of them are members of the Order of Interbeing too. So I'm going to share a slideshow and then we'll get on with the story. So let me just see how I can share screen. Voila. That is, it works. Okay, so we've just called it In the Footsteps of the Buddha because that's how we go to the places which the Buddha suggested that we go to. And he suggested that in what is called the Mahaparinirvana Sutra, where he said that it's important that we visit 4 of the places which were associated with his life: the place of his birth, the place of his awakening, the place of his first teachings, and the place of his passing away. And interestingly, tonight or today is the day when 3 of those events took place. And that's why we thought it's quite important to inform you that, or share that it was Lumbini where he was born, Bodh Gaya where he was awakened, and of course, Kushinagar where he passed away. And they all happened on this particular full moon, according to the tradition, which is in the most traditions, especially in the Pali tradition, we tend to go for that one. Here the word Tathagat is the Buddha calling himself the one who comes from suchness. Now, most of you are aware the Buddha lived part in the northern Gangetic plains, near the border with Nepal, and in this what is called the middle land of India. And if you see the small map on the side, it's that little rectangle, which is the states of Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, which are the 2 states mainly where the Buddha spent his time. Now, the story goes, and this partly is metaphorical, partly is symbolic. A lot of the stories of that are like that. When Ajit Bhai was talking about the 7 steps the Buddha took, of course, they can also be seen as a metaphor of how a lotus is supposed to bloom under each step. So the lightness and the awareness with which we step with every footprint we make. So here, the story is that Mahadevi, the mother of the Buddha, had a dream, and the dream was that a white elephant came and entered her and placed a pink lotus in her womb. He was a 6-tusked elephant, and white elephants are always considered very auspicious. And so, at this point, I will ask Vivek to share the story of what is happening at that moment.
Siddhartha's mother was named Mahamaya. A woman of great virtue, her love extended to all beings, people, animals, and plants. It was the custom in those days for a woman to return to her parents' home to give birth there. Mahamaya was from the country of Kolia, so she set out for Ramagama, the capital of Kolia. Along the way, she stopped to rest in the garden of Lumbini. The forest there was filled with flowers and singing birds. Peacocks fanned their splendid tails in the morning light. Admiring an ashok tree in full bloom, the queen walked towards it, when suddenly feeling unsteady, she grabbed a branch of the ashok tree to support her. Just a moment later, still holding the branch, Queen Mahamaya gave birth to a radiant son. The prince was bathed in fresh water and wrapped in yellow silk by Mahamaya's attendants. As there was no longer any need to return to Ramagama, the queen and the newborn prince were carried home in the 4-horse carriage. When they arrived home, the prince was again bathed in warm water and placed next to his mother.
Thank you, Vivek. Thank you for sharing. And you might notice that when Vivek was sharing, that it was said that the Mahamaya held the branch of an Ashoka tree. This is actually the Sita Ashoka tree, the Saraka indica, which is what is mentioned in the Chinese canon. The Pali canon says it is a Sala tree. But over the many years of research, what I've been doing with other friends, I feel that it's more likely this tree. But anyway, it doesn't matter which tree, but it is nice to know that the Buddha was born under a tree, and a tree which flowers like this at the time of the Buddha's birth. It's flowering now, actually, in parts of India. Now, I just want to show this depiction, which is the inscription on a Ashokan pillar at Lumbini. And the reason for this is because when this script was deciphered in 1837 by a man called James Prinsep, we then had sure authentication of the Buddha as a human being, because in it is mentioned Ashoka, who we know was a historical being. We might think it's surprising now, but at that time, people were thinking that the Buddha may be a mythological character, a bit like a Shiva in a lot of the Hindu pantheon. We have many gods and goddesses in the Hindu pantheon who may be not so real. But here it's important to realize that the Buddha was a human being, and this was what was one of the ways it was confirmed by the deciphering of the script. Now, we don't know what the Buddha looked like. There's no record of, there was no pictures made, nothing like that, no drawings. But if you study the politics of the time, we might look at that young man who's standing back with this hand behind his back with a smile. You might think that he might have looked a bit like that because of the racial characteristics. Now, we don't know. We know quite a lot about his life, actually, even as a young child, because one of the difficulties was that his mother died 8 days after he was born. And there's a famous story of a man called Ashita Kaladevala, who was an old priest. And when he comes to see the child, he holds the child and he starts crying. And the father says, "What's going to happen? Is something bad going to befall my son?" And he said, no, it's because I know this child will be a great spiritual teacher and I will have died by then. I will not be able to hear his teachings. So the king always remembers this, and the king is all in the dream, in the interpretation of the dream of the elephant. It's been said that the son will be born and he will be either a great teacher, a spiritual teacher, or a great ruler. And the king is always keen that the son stays as a great ruler, of course. Now, this depiction of this plowing, I put that in because I feel it's the first time we know that the Buddha, in a way, meditated. He was 9 years old. He was sitting under what is called a jamun tree, which is a type of dark plum. And some people call it rose apple, but it's more like a dark plum in India, jamun. And he's been at a plowing festival, and he's got a bit bored, and he's been seeing, there's been a lot of chanting going on. And then at a certain point, when the plowing starts, he then starts watching intently, and the plow cuts the earth, which is absolutely fascinating. And then slowly the plow cuts a worm in half. And then he gets a bit disturbed, and then he sees a small bird come and pick up half the worm. And then he sees a bigger bird come and attack the small bird. And all this disturbs him quite a lot. And he goes and sits under the tree very quietly and just contemplating what he's seeing. And then when his mother comes and he opens his eyes, he says something like, how does all that chanting help the worm and the baby bird? Of course, the mother has tears, and she realizes that he has this sort of spiritual inclination. The father doesn't quite like this idea. But anyway, the young boy then goes home and is brought up in quite a spoilt way, as he says. He's brought up in a place called Kapilavastu, which is where the capital of the Shakya people are. And again, we have many stories about what he was doing there, but for paucity of time, I won't go into them. But we know that he wasn't very interested in politics. He wasn't really interested in the ruling of the country. And so his father thought that the best thing to do with a young man who has these sort of rather, spiritual, compassionate interest is to get him married. And so they find an appropriate match, and a young woman called Yashodhara, who's actually related to him in some way, and they get married. They're both at the age of 16. That doesn't seem to change his interest in spiritual matters, and it seems they make a sort of pact that he wants to go and meet the great teachers who are in the south, in Rajgir, in Vaishali, but he won't go and do that maybe until a son is born or a child is born. Because it's strange that they didn't have a child for 13 years. So maybe Yashodhara just delayed having a child. And at the age of 29, soon after having a child, Siddhartha Gautama, that was the name he was given. Siddhartha means the one who achieves his aim. Gautama was the clan that he belonged to. So Siddhartha Gautama leaves home and goes south to meet many, many different teachers. And on this journey, this is the great departure, the renunciation. And actually what is affecting him is in some ways what is happening with COVID-19. We can see he was looking at those main sort of issues, of sickness, death, old age, those sort of, the sort of existential angst we have as human beings. Is this what life is about? Is this it? And he wanted to find a way out of this. And so he then leaves his horse, cuts his hair, gives it to his charioteer, Channa, and tells him to take it home. And then for 6 years, so this is the age of 29, till the age of 35, he then practices with many, many different teachers. Now, this is a depiction of the ascetic practices, but before that, he has already met with one of the great teachers of the time, Alara Kalama. He was the great teacher of concentration, a yogic practitioner. He met Udakaram Putra, who was a great Upanishadic teacher probably. He also met other teachers of the time. But this particular practice of asceticism was also suggested and promoted by a man called, who we know as Mahavira, Nigatha Nagaputta in the Buddhist text. And he tried this practice too, to try and come in touch with the soul. There was the idea that there was a soul, and he couldn't come in touch with anything that that had an inherent existence. And so slowly I shouldn't say slowly, I mean, he nearly dies. He then decides to start eating, and he goes down into the village. He is nearly dying because he hasn't eaten for months. And he says his body is like his ribs are like rafters of a dilapidated building. His head is like a shriveled gourd. His buttocks are like the hooves of a horse. When he touches his stomach, he can touch his backbone. And he goes on a bit like that. His eyes are like sunken wells. So he's really, really emaciated. And he's dying when this young girl, Sujata, actually is taking some kheer, some rice and milk pudding, and she's taking it as an offering to a tree god. And she sees the Buddha, or the wanderer Siddhartha Gautama, he's not then the Buddha, dying or lying there, and she offers him a little bit and offers him a little more, and he slowly sits up, feels revived. Now, while he was practicing the asceticism, he was also practicing other ascetics. And they see him now eating, even worse, probably talking to a young girl, and they leave, and he hardly notices. One of my feminist friends says, this is the moment of his awakening, you see. He then came in touch with his feminine, and the macho boys, the macho practices were left behind. But anyway, that's a matter of interpretation. But that is not what most people feel is the case. But he then walks from there to what we know as the Bodhi Tree. And for this, we thought that it would be nice if the three of our friends, Ananya, Tina, and Poonam, will read passages from Old Path White Clouds, as Thai has very beautifully expressed. So this is actually the Vajra Asana where the Buddha would have sat, or this came later, this was put in the 3rd century BCE by Ashoka, and that's the tree. This is an old photograph. For those of you who've been more recently, this was how we could access the tree earlier. Now, there's a lot more razzmatazz around it. So I will ask Ananya to take over. She's from Guwahati. So let's see if we can switch the screen.
Slowly, Siddhartha sat down in the lotus position. He looked at the river flowing quietly in the distance as soft breezes rustled the grasses along its banks. The night forest was tranquil, yet very much alive. Around him chirped 1,000 different insects. He turned his awareness to his breath and lightly closed his eyes. The evening star appeared in the sky. Through mindfulness, Siddhartha's mind, body, and breath were perfectly at one. His practice of mindfulness had enabled him to build great powers of concentration, which he could now use to shine awareness on his mind and body. After deeply entering meditation, he began to discern the presence of countless other beings in his own body right in the present moment. Organic and inorganic beings, minerals, mosses and grasses, insects, animals and people were all within him. He saw that other beings were himself right in the present moment. He saw his own past lives, all his births and deaths. He saw the creation and destruction of thousands of worlds and thousands of stars. He felt all joys and sorrows of every living being, those born of mothers, those born of eggs, and those born of fission, who divided themselves into new creatures. He saw that every cell of his body contained all of heaven and earth, and spanned the 3 times, past, present, and future. It was the hour of the first watch of the night. Gautama entered even more deeply into meditation. He saw how countless worlds arose and fell, were created and destroyed. He saw how countless beings passed through countless births and deaths. He saw that these births and deaths were but outward appearances and not true reality. Just as millions of waves rise and fall incessantly on the surface of the sea, while the sea itself is beyond birth and death. If the waves understood that they themselves were water, they would transcend birth and death and arrive at true inner peace, overcoming all fear. This realization enabled Gautama to transcend the net of birth and death, and he smiled. His smile was like a flower blossoming in the deep night, which radiated a halo of light. It was the smile of a wondrous understanding, the insight into the destruction of all defilements. He attained this level of understanding by the 2nd watch. Thank you.
Yes, Tina, thank you.
At just that moment, thunder crashed, and great bolts of lightning flashed across the sky, as if to rip the heavens in two. Black clouds concealed the moon and stars. Rain poured down. Gautam was soaking wet, but he did not budge. He continued his meditation. Without wavering, he shined his light of awareness on his mind. He saw that living beings suffer because they do not understand that they share one common ground with all beings. Ignorance gives rise to a multitude of sorrows, confusions, and troubles. Greed, anger, arrogance, doubt, jealousy, and fear all have their roots in ignorance. When we learn to calm our minds in order to look deeply at the true nature of things, we can arrive at full understanding, which dissolves every sorrow and anxiety and gives rise to acceptance and love. Gautam now saw that understanding and love are one. Without understanding, there can be no love. Each person's disposition is the result of physical, emotional, and social conditions. When we understand this, we cannot hate even a person who behaves cruelly, but we can strive to help transform his physical, emotional, and social conditions. Understanding gives rise to compassion and love. It is first necessary to understand. So understanding is the key to liberation. In order to attain clear understanding, it is necessary to live mindfully, making direct contact with life in the present moment, truly seeing what is taking place within and outside of oneself. Practicing mindfulness strengthens the ability to look deeply. And when we look deeply into the heart of anything, it will reveal itself. This is the secret treasure of mindfulness. It leads to the realization of liberation and enlightenment. Life is illuminated by right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Siddhartha called this the noble path, Arya Marg. Looking deeply into the heart of all beings, Siddhartha attained insight into everyone's minds, no matter where they were, and he was able to hear everyone's cries of both suffering and joy. He attained to the states of divine sight, divine hearing, and the ability to travel across all distances without moving. It was now the end of the third watch, and there was no more thunder. The clouds rolled back to reveal the bright moon and stars.
Purnima felt as though a prison which had confined him for thousands of lifetimes had broken open. Ignorance had been the jailkeeper. Because of ignorance, his mind had been obscured, just like the moon and stars hidden by the storm clouds. Clouded by endless waves of deluded thoughts, the mind had falsely divided reality into subject and object, self and others, existence and non-existence, birth and death. And from these discriminations arose wrong views, the prisons of feeling, craving, grasping, and becoming. The suffering of birth, old age, sickness, and death only made the prison walls thicker. The only thing to do was to seize the jailkeeper and see his true face. The jailkeeper was ignorant, and the means to overcome ignorance were the noble eightfold path. Once the jailkeeper was gone, the jail would disappear and never be rebuilt again. The hermit Gautama smiled and whispered to himself, "O jailer, I see you now. How many lifetimes have you confined me in the prisons of birth and death? But now I see your face clearly, and from now on you can build no more prisons around me." Looking up, Siddhartha saw the morning star appear on the horizon, twinkling like a huge diamond. He had seen the star so many times before while sitting beneath the peepal tree, but this morning it was like seeing it for the first time. It was as dazzling as the jubilant smile of enlightenment. Siddhartha gazed at the star and exclaimed out of deep compassion, "All beings contain within themselves the seeds of enlightenment, and yet we drown in the ocean of birth and death for so many thousands of lifetimes." Siddhartha knew he had found the great way. He had attained his goal, and now his heart experienced perfect peace and ease. He thought about his years of searching, filled with disappointments and hardships. He thought of his father, mother, aunt, Yashodhara, Rahul, and all his friends. He thought of the palace, Kapilavatu, his people and country, and of all those who lived in hardship and poverty, especially children. He promised to find a way to share his discovery to help all others liberate themselves from suffering. Of his deep insight emerged a profound love for all beings. Along the grassy riverbanks, colorful flowers blossomed in the early morning sunlight. Sun danced on leaves and sparkled on the water. His pain was gone. All the wonders of life revealed themselves. Everything appeared strangely new. How wondrous were the blue skies and drifting white clouds. He felt as though he and all the universe had been newly created.
So thank you, Poonam. This sharing of the Buddha, maybe Manish, you might want to spotlight Rita later. I can see Rita is there. Spotlight. Okay. So yeah. So so I was just saying that how Thai describes this whole process of awakening. I remember I was involved with the Hollywood movie once on the Buddha, and it was very, very difficult to describe what is that process the Buddha was going through. And I think Thai does it beautifully. And he also has a chapter in his book called People Leaf, where he talks about the leaf as one of the teachers of the Buddha. And he says that when he saw the leaf, this is the leaf from the tree, and he says when he saw the leaf, he could see the clouds, the rain, the sunshine, the earth, everything in the universe was in this leaf. And if you took out one of those elements out, if you took the clouds out, or the rain, or the earth, or the sunshine, or the seed, this leaf would not be as we see it. And this was this deep understanding of interconnectedness, interbeing, what we know as patit samutpada, or dependent origination. This is the great E equals MC squared of the Buddha. This understanding of non-self, the understanding of interconnectedness. And this is what he discovered also under the tree in Bodh Gaya. So he then spends about 7 weeks in Bodh Gaya, enjoying himself, sitting under the tree, looking at the tree, etc. And then he decides in the process that he's going to teach. This is a great compassion in him. You know, he feels his teachings are hard to understand, they may be tiresome to teach, but he will teach for the benefit of those who may have only a little dust on their eyes. So he meets an Ajivaka, Upaka, the determinist, and he says, do you know the teacher Alara Kalama, Udakara Maputa? These are people he feels will understand his old teachers. And he says, the Ajivaka says that, you know, they've died recently. And then he says, do you know the 5 ascetics? And he says, yes, they're in the deer park in Sarnath, in Isipatana, near Varanasi. So the Buddha then decides to go and teach them because he realizes that they will understand. And he goes all the way, it takes him more than 2 weeks to walk there to Sarnath. And this is a photograph of the Dhammek Stupa in Sarnath, where the Buddha gave his first teachings. And this is a statue in the museum which shows the Buddha giving his first teaching. It's called the Dhamacakka Parivartana Sutra. And this is the teaching of the turning of the wheel of the law. And this is what the Buddha gave. And of course, when Tina was speaking about the 4 Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, this is very much what the teaching of the Buddha gave, and the teaching on the middle way. Now, actually, Sarnath is very close to Varanasi. But so it's interesting because Buddha was not very welcome in Varanasi because it is a very steeped in a Brahmanical tradition where there's a great belief in the sense of an Atma, a soul, an entity that transmigrates and is eternal, linked to Brahman. But the Buddha was saying there's nothing. His theory was very much based on, or his teaching was based on anatma. So it's interesting that these 2 great cultures and great religious traditions were living side by side and normally quite happily together, and even today they do. Now the Buddha then, after he's spent his first rain retreat in Sarnath, then decides to go back to Rajgir, first to Bodh Gaya and then to Rajgir. Now in Bodh Gaya, there are about 1,000 matted hair ascetics who then become his students. They are fire worshippers, and then they slowly become his disciples, and then they move from Bodh Gaya to Rajgir. And one day when they are sitting at what is called Lathivan or Jethian now, the king hears that there's a teacher in town, and the king goes to visit. Now, Urvala Kashyapa is the old Jatila. He's the old, the matted hair ascetics, and he's sitting on the side, and everyone thinks he's the main teacher. He's very well known. But then he bows to the Buddha, and said the Buddha is his teacher, and then the Buddha gives the graduated discourse. Now the king, who's there with many of his courtiers, then gets up at the end and bows to the Buddha, and he says, I had 5 wishes, and all of them have been fulfilled now. And the first was to become king. The second was to be visited by an awakened person. The third was to be able to welcome and show respect to that person. And the fourth was to be able to hear his or her true teachings of the true path. And the fifth was to be able to understand those teachings. And now all these 5 wishes have been fulfilled. So please come, and then he invites him to his house, and then he offers him this land, which we still have. It's called the Venuvan, the bamboo grove, where it's an absolutely beautiful place to go. And in that time, the Buddha also meets Shariputra, Mahamoggallana. And so in the second year of his mission, as it were, we have 1,250 monastics already ordained by him. He also meets a great benefactor, Anathapindika, in Rajgir, who's come to meet his brother-in-law. And Anathapindika says, please come to Shravasti, which is the other great capital of the Koshala kingdom. Rajgir is the capital of the Magadha kingdom. And so, sorry, I'm speaking a little faster than I should because I'm just aware of the time a little bit. But don't worry, it's if you just let the names go. Don't worry about these names if you're not familiar with them. But those of you who are familiar will know them. And Anathapindika then gets this wonderful park called the Jeta Grove, the Jeta Vana, and offers it to the Buddha in a very interesting transaction with Prince Jeta, where he lays gold coins on the land as a way of payment. And then Prince Jeta donates the trees after that. And that's why it's called the Jetavana Anathapindika Arama. But poor Anathapindika is forgotten because it's such a long name. But in Shravasti, at the Jeta Grove, and also at what is called the East Grove Monastery, the Purvarama, which was given by a lady Vishaka, the Buddha gave some of the most important teachings that we know. For the last 24 years of his teachings, except the last one, he went back to Shravasti and gave teachings there for 3 months. So the rain retreats were spent there. And he gave teachings on full awareness of breathing that we had just now. He gave teachings on teachings to the sick. He gave teachings on how to live happily in the present moment. The Discourse on Happiness, the Mahamangala Sutra. Many, many teachings were given there. And the famous story about the man Angulimal, who was the man who was the sort of terrorist of the time, who was chopping off people's fingers and making a garland out of them until he meets the Buddha, has this huge transformation and then becomes a non-violent person, and his name is Ahimsaka. And this tells us today also that this transformation is possible for anyone, even the people we think have no hope or feel that we always have that ability to transform if they come across the teaching of awakening and of love. One of the favorite places of the Buddha was Vulture Peak in Rajgir. The Buddha spends he goes back there. He tells Ananda, his attendant, Anand, why don't we go back to Vulture Peak and watch the sunset? Wonderful. But it's about 1,000 miles away. So then you start walking again, 600 miles actually, I should say. So, and just say, oh, let's go watch the sunset. And you just get up and start walking. And anyway, today in India, so many people are walking not for pleasure, but out of desperation to get back to their homes because they're migrant labor. But anyway, the Buddha just walked, and this is the culture of walking. He never went on any sort of vehicle with wheels, except once. So he goes back to Rajgir, and this is a photo of the Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh, my teacher, and the one who I've really sat at the feet of for more than 30 years. And he's sitting on Vulture Peak watching the sunset. He has unusually interesting ears, so those of us who know him would recognize him. He also feels, Thich Nhat Hanh feels, or Thai as we call him, feels that this is his favorite place, and his own Buddha eyes opened in Vulture Peak. So it's a special place for the Sangha, and many of our older monastics have been ordained there. And it's been a place where I took the 5 mindfulness trainings in 1988 with Thich Nhat Hanh. So it's a very special place to be, and also very powerful, because it's supposed to be where the Heart Sutra was given, the Lotus Sutra was given. These are later sutras, but supposed to have been given there. But of course, the Buddha gave the flower sermon, which is a wonderful teaching where the Buddha just picked up a flower and kept silent. And Mahakashyapa is supposed to have got awakened in this present moment transmission of non-judgmental present moment awareness without veiled any sort of blink of thinking or perception, just direct realization. So that's why we think of Mahakashyapa sometimes as the first Zen master. Anyway, after this, the Buddha then leaves Vulture Peak, and this is mentioned in the Mahaparinirvana Sutra, and goes all the way to Kushinagar. He spends his last rain retreat in Vaishali, which is the capital, the first republic in the world. He then goes up to a place called Pava, which is the capital of the Malla people, and he eats a meal which seems to be poisoned, or it is poisonous food. We call it Sukara Mandava. It may have been a type of truffle or mushroom that pigs have found, because Sukara means pig and Mandava means flower. but the Buddha has very bad dysentery, and he lies down in Kushinagar in the midst of a sal forest. Sal is another tree, and he knows he's going to die. He announces that to people. Many people start coming. And in that process, there's a man called Subhada. Subhada is quite an elderly man, and he comes to meet the Buddha, and he asks Anand, the Buddha's attendant, can he meet the Buddha? And the Anand says, no, the Buddha is tired, he's not well, please. But the Buddha overhears this conversation and then asks Subhada to come in to meet him. Now, Subhada then asks the Buddha a question. He says, there are many teachers like Nigatha Nagaputta, Sanjaya Belaputta, Mahakali Koshala. These are all the famous teachers of the time. Which one of them is enlightened? They all say they're enlightened. And the Buddha says it is not important who is enlightened and who is not enlightened. What is important that you can awaken yourself. And the Buddha then gives the teaching of the Eightfold Path. The same teaching he gave 45 years before at Sarnath to his first disciples. As he's dying, when he's 80 years old, he's giving the same teaching, of course, with 45 years more experience embedded in it, on the Eightfold Path, and says this is the path that if you practice it diligently with great motivation and aspiration, you will awaken in this very life. And then the Buddha passes on. So now I'm going to pass the spotlight, as it were, to Rita. Rita will read that section where the Buddha is now transiting from this life.
After Subhada's head was shaved, he received the precepts and was given a robe and bowl. The Buddha then looked at all the bhikkhus sitting around him. Many of the bhikkhus from the vicinity had arrived, and so there were now nearly 500. The Buddha spoke to them. Bhikkhus, if you have any doubts or perplexity concerning the teaching, now is the time to ask the Tathagata about it. Don't let this opportunity pass by, so that later you will reproach yourselves, saying, that day I was face to face with the Buddha, but I did not ask him. The Buddha repeated these words 3 times, but no bhikkhu spoke. Venerable Ananda exclaimed, Lord, it is truly wonderful. I have faith in the community of bhikkhus. I have faith in the Sangha. Everyone has clearly, no one has any doubts or perplexity about your teaching and the path to realize it. The Buddha said, Ananda, you speak from faith, while the Tathagata has direct knowledge. The Tathagata knows that all the bhikkhus here possess deep faith in the 3 gems. Even the lowest attainment among these bhikkhus is that of stream enterer. The Buddha looked quietly over the community and then said, Bhikkhus, listen to what the Tathagata now says. Dharmas are impermanent. If there is birth, there is death. Be diligent in your efforts to attain liberation. The Buddha closed his eyes. He had spoken his last words. The earth shook. Sal blossoms fell like rain. Everyone felt their hands and bodies tremble. They knew the Buddha had passed into nirvana.
Thank you so much, Rita. Manish, I'm not able to get my cursor yet, so I can't start my video. Could you spotlight me, or is it difficult?
You need to start your video. Actually, it got stopped.
Oh, okay. Let me. I'm not sure how to do that.
You should press Alt V.
Alt what?
Alt V. Alt V. Alt V.
I don't see an Alt here. It's an Apple.
Oh.
Command V?
Yeah, that's right.
No, okay, that's fine. Now I'll go back to, yeah, start my video. Yeah, okay. Is that fine now? I've started my video. Can you get a minute?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, great. This is not bad. Now I'll move back to, okay. So thank you so much, Rita, and all the other friends from the Sangha who shared so nicely. You know, so this is how the Buddha then, of course, closes this part of his life and then shares very deeply, saying that everything is impermanent, keep up the practice, and that is his last words. And these are great teachings which we know today, the three seals of impermanence, non-self, and nirvana. But one thing I would like to remind us is that when you saw those flowers, the sal tree, and they saw the flowers in the Sita Shok tree, and then you saw this Bodhi tree, you know that the Buddha was awakened under a tree, he was born under a tree, and he attained Mahaparinirvana or died under a tree. And so this in itself, you can see how much importance that trees had in his life. And of course, many other trees have stories with his life, like Sujata giving the kheer under banyan tree and sitting in mango groves, etc. So I'm going to now invite the bell to close the story of the life of the Buddha. I would recommend you reading Old Path, White Clouds if you have not. And then I'm going to invite Gitu to lead us in an eating meditation practice. Okay, so Gitu's going to take my seat and do it from here while I move sideways. Thank you.
I just need a few breaths because my computer just turned off. So if you don't mind, just 1 or 2 breaths because I've been running up and down the steps.
You want to sound the bell?
Yes, please. So hello, dear friends. I have the pleasure of sharing my favorite, and it's a very popular practice, eating meditation. So you all just heard the story about the Buddha from Shantum, and our other friends read from Old Path White Clouds. So in Thai's book, actually, he says, on the morning of his enlightenment, the buffalo boy, Swasti, who's from the nearby village, and Sujata, who gave him the kheer, come by to visit the Buddha, and they see a great change in him. And they say there's some sort of difference, and he just smiles and he says, why don't you call all the village children over today, and let's maybe have a fruit which we can share with all of them. So Swasti and Sujata then invite all the village children, and they get, Thai writes that they get tangerines. I'm not quite sure whether tangerines were in India at that time, but maybe this is Thai's poetic license. It may have been mango, but one doesn't know. And he invites all the children, and they sit in a circle, and that's when the Buddha gives his teaching on eating meditation to these children. And he actually teaches them how to eat that tangerine in full awareness from the beginning to the end. We practice something called the 5 contemplations in Plum Village before we eat any meal. And the second contemplation actually is very interesting. It says, may we eat with mindfulness and gratitude so as to be worthy to receive this food. So I think we owe that awareness and time to the food that we eat. In this case, I happen to have an orange. I'm not sure whether everyone has an orange because I believe it's out of season in some places. But whatever you have, maybe an apple or a banana or a quinoa. And I think while we contemplate this fruit or this orange, we will know then why we owe it so much respect so that we are worthy to receive it. We often eat without thinking and quite mechanically. Sometimes the taste of something sort of, strikes us and we put our attention on it, but then a minute later we are still doing something else and we're not really concentrating on our food. So today, maybe on Zoom, let's all try and eat in full awareness and mindfulness. So I would invite you to pick up your fruit and just put it on the palm of your hand and just look at it. See its beautiful color. In my case, it's an orange. And see how that color came to be. If you look deeply, you may be able to see the sun in this fruit. The sunset has maybe given that orange color. You can see the earth, which may have nourished the tree it came from and was its mother. The warm rays of the sun. Maybe the cool light of the moon on a hot summer night. If we look deeply, we can see the rain, which may have contributed to its juice and helped it grow. The air, which provided its sustenance with the other elements. So while we look at this orange or whatever fruit we have, we can see all the elements in it. In the first contemplation, I talked about the second. In the first contemplation, we say, this food is the gift of the whole universe, the earth, the sky, and much hard work. And we can actually look deeply in here and see that. Then maybe we can actually try and use our other sense, which is our ear, and listen very deeply to the story of this orange or this fruit that we have. Its story as a seed in the earth and how it grew into a tree. Maybe in Nagpur in India, where we get delicious oranges, or in Florida or in Brazil. And then if you listen, you may be able to hear the birds on that tree. The crickets at night, maybe. or an owl who may have sat on that tree at night. You can maybe hear the bees buzzing around the blossoms before it became a fruit on that tree. And if you listen very carefully, or you may be able to even see the farmer who actually grew that tree, and hear the children of the farmer playing around that tree. Farmer smiles at them. Maybe the wife who actually came out and checked on the tree after a storm. Then in the story of the orange, we see the person who purchased these oranges from the farmer and how it traveled all the way in a truck to maybe a wholesale market in our city. And then maybe it reached the shop next door. Our local shopkeeper who we know, we can see him, and we bought it from him. And now it's actually in our hand. What a miracle that it's here. Through lockdown, so many causes and conditions have made this orange manifest and got it here to have today. Then we take our other sense, and that is before peeling it, I thought maybe we can smell the orange. So if you close your eyes and maybe just take a deep breath, even though it may have a thick peel, just hold it near your nose and take in its beautiful fragrance. Sometimes the smell of something is as powerful as its taste, actually. You can already taste it in your mouth when you smell it. Now we go to the other sense of touch. Now with great awareness and very gently, let's just feel the fruit with our hands and fingers. If you close your eyes, you can feel the smoothness of its skin. If you have another fruit, maybe little knobs here and there. Rotate it in your hands and feel the cool temperature. If you have a mango, you probably can feel the heat of the mango. And the thickness of the skin, which has protected this orange for months as it grew. Now maybe we can start peeling it. Slowly, very slowly. And no hurry, just start peeling it. You can feel the juice coming out in your hand. You're removing this protective layer, which has worked very hard to keep the inner fruit safe and fresh. And we will try and treat the skin with great respect. See, the inside of the skin is white, the softness. You can peel the peel in the shape of a flower. I think many of us did that when we were young, and we forget to do that as we grow older. Now we don't have the time to do that. So we can see this peel as something special, not just something which we're going to throw away. I mean, I can make orange peel tea out of it, or a lovely, yummy chocolate orange mousse with the rind of this peel. Or it can be used as compost, and it may be the mother of the next orange tree. So we gently put the peel aside, and now to taste. We normally jump all these things and come straight to taste. So it's very nice to be able to contemplate the orange and now taste it. So we can take a segment if you like, and look at it before, and back to the second contemplation, we look at this segment. And so we're going to try and eat it with great gratitude so as to be worthy to receive it. We've seen where it's come from, so we eat it slowly, no hurry, and chew it carefully. You can taste the rain and the sun. can, maybe you can see the hard work of the farmer. The last time I did this meditation, we had a friend who just couldn't eat it because she felt it became like prasad, like an offering. But actually the orange is not dying. It's just transforming and is becoming a part of us. And it'll keep living on in different forms. Please enjoy your orange. It's a wonderful miracle of nature. It really has the whole world present in this. As we are a little short of time, I will move out, and please keep enjoying your orange and pass on to the next person who's going to present. Thank you so much.
I absolutely loved that orange. I'm still only halfway, but thank you, Gitu. Gitu, I didn't introduce her. She's the facilitator of the Sangha in Dehradun and also a great Sangha builder. So she's been very integrally involved in building the Ahimsa Sangha, and we are partners and married together. We are a couple. So I'm going to invite the sound of the bell just to pause between this eating meditation and the next offering. The taste lingers on, and it's such a, I just saw one bit of a chat come up saying, amazing experience. And really is, and I feel that, we all have that opportunity to taste every morsel of food in our lives like this. So thank you so much for this sharing, and it's a wonderful experience that all of us can have every day and share with our children, our families, our friends. We can have an orange party, just one orange, wonderful, and spend half an hour over it. I know we've reached 8 o'clock. I'd said that we'd finish in 2 hours, but just another 15 minutes or so, 10, 15 minutes before we close. So if you can bear with us, we knew that we may not be able to fit exactly at 8 o'clock, but if that's okay with you. We want to invite Amu. Amu is Amu Lula, who's part of the Gurgaon Sangha, to also share about the teaching on offering on dana and the offering. So Amu, would you be there? Can you spotlight Amu? Amu, great.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Would you like a sound of the bell before you start? Are you okay?
That would be lovely, Shant. Thank you. So Thai speaks about the paramitas as a flower with 6 petals, in the middle of which he suggests we write mindfulness. On Google, paramita is translated as perfection. The 6 petals are giving, diligence, mindfulness trainings, inclusiveness, meditation, and insight. And the substance of each petal is mindfulness. This evening, I will share about the Dana Paramita from Thai's book, The Path of Emancipation. This is the practice of giving. When we give, we find ourselves on the other shore. When we are angry, we suffer because of our anger. When we practice giving to the person that we perceive as the cause of our anger, we find ourselves on the shore of non-anger and well-being. Deep in our hearts and minds, we know that we have the seed of generosity and the willingness to make the other person happy. There are several ways to practice Dana Paramita. Giving is a very deep practice, and we don't need to be rich to give. We are a lot richer than we realize, and we make a lot of people happy when we give. We need only to come back to ourselves, practice mindful breathing, and recognize that we have a treasure of happiness and other elements that can make other people happy. If we know how to use our time, our energy, our smiles, then we can make others happy. And in that, we make ourselves happy. Nearly all of us here at Ahimsa Trust are volunteers, and we give of our time, our energy, and ourselves. We are offering free online sessions during this time of the pandemic, and on every Saturday. All our days of mindfulness, as well as all our retreats that we do with the police, are free. We don't charge them, nor do we charge government schools. All our education retreats are subsidized and almost free, given what it costs us to bring our monastics who travel here from all over the world to teach. We support the education of underprivileged children, and we work in 9 villages in the Shantiniketan area. We are also setting up a mindfulness practice center in Dehradun, where we hope that someday in the not so distant future, we will all enjoy practicing together. All your dana will be greatly appreciated and will go a long way to further the work that we do. It is about practicing that dana and that abundance of giving.
Thank you, Amu. Thank you for sharing a teaching, but also a way of offering people a chance to develop the paramita. The paramitas are ways of coming across to the other shore. For lay people, we often suggest dana as a very good step to engage in other people's suffering, engage in other people's happiness, to see and empathize and to feel what other people are going through and how to open our heart in a way which can really engage in the interbeing nature of our universe, not just people, but also nature. I want to mention here one particular person who passed away recently in this last month, actually, who has been a great mentor and a great donor to us, Ashok Bhai Desai. He, when we were starting the Mindfulness Practice Center, which we hope to be a plum village in India, a Thich Nhat Hanh center in India. We rang him up and said, we'd like to buy this purchase this land? And readily he said yes. And he donated, and we all decided to donate, the 5 of us who got together to donate 2/3 of the land to the Sangha, to the trust. And Ashok Bhai said, no, I will donate 100%. And unfortunately, he passed away. And I just want to acknowledge him because he was also a great mentor to us. Whenever we had any issues, he would always come back to us. And I feel that now we would like to do something in his memory on the Jamun village. We're calling it Jamun village after the tree under which the Buddha practiced as a child. And of course, Jamun is the black plum. So it's appropriate as a plum village, India. But as Amu was pointing out, that we can offer in many, many ways. Some are even symbolic. And one of the symbolic ways is to offer light. This is often in the Buddhist tradition, we think of dispelling the darkness of ignorance. All that we've been teaching or studying from the Buddha is really how to dispel that ignorance of the idea of me, mine, I, the self-view. And sometimes it's easier to do it slightly ritualistically even, because rituals can also remind you of the teaching. So of course the inner light is the mindfulness practice, which is what we are emphasizing. But also we can light a candle and see that light emanating into the universe and joining with the light of the full moon, which is really offering us all light all around the world. It does not, again, discriminate between countries and sexes and any which way, even a species. The full moon just offers its light to all of us. And the full moon is often depicted as the awakened mind in the Buddhist context. So we often talk about the Buddhist understanding of the awakened mind through the moon. And so I thought we'd put up this little slide of the moon crossing across to the other shore in a sort of way. And at this point, we would suggest that everyone light a candle, if they have one, close to them. So we could just light the candle, and then there'll be 2 friends who'll be sharing a song and a poem after this. So if you have time, just light your candle. I'll just light mine. So this candle, later I thought after the session's over in a few minutes, we can offer it in a special place in the house. I think it's always nice to have a place in the house, like an altar or some breathing space. But every year for the last 21 years, we've been offering light to a banyan tree in Sanskriti Kendra. But this year, since we're not there, you might even want to go outside. And after this, even look at the full moon if it's up where you are. It's already risen in Dehradun, in Delhi, but I noticed friends are also in other parts of the world. So you may have already got the moon higher, or it'll arrive. Don't worry. That we're pretty sure about so far, nearly. So I'm going to invite a sound of the bell, and then please enjoy the light of your candle. Use that as a vehicle of inner light, the inner light of mindfulness, of meditation. And in this time of COVID-19, please remember that, please feel that you have a Sangha to support you. Don't feel alone in this time. If you need anybody to speak to or be in contact with, Ahimsa Trust is always there. We're there for you, and we can practice together. And like I said, every Saturday at least, we will offer a guided meditation and a teaching at 6 o'clock Indian time. But also other times, please do feel free to write into the 2 addresses that were given earlier. Well, the address ahimsa.trust@gmail.com, or look at the website www.ahimsatrust.org. And We are very glad that you've joined us today as a global Sangha, as a community of practice, and to celebrate Buddha Purnima together. It is now dark outside and I can see the moon. It's wonderful, but I will show you the moon on the screen. So I'm going to invite the sound of the bell, and then I will invite Sonal to read a poem by Thai on the full moon. And then after that, Amu and Mala will share the song, No Coming, No Going. And as they close, I will invite three sounds of the bell, and then we will close the evening session. At which point, please feel free to take your candle and place it in a safe way, a safe place that it doesn't cause any untoward problems, but it can be outside or inside. But please feel that we have communed together for the last 2 hours and remembered our ultimate teacher, the Buddha. And again, I would like to thank my own teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, and the teacher of our community for offering this very wise path in a contemporary setting, in a contemporary way to us. So thank you for joining us, and just enjoy the poem and the song as we close. And Sonal is from part of the Noida Sangha, and Amu and Mala you met before.
So this is an excerpt from the poem Contemplation from the collection by Thai called Call Me By My True Names. Since the moon is full tonight, let us call upon the stars in prayer. The power of concentration seen through the bright one-pointed mind is shaking the universe. All living beings are present tonight to witness the ocean of fear flooding the earth. Upon the sound of the midnight bell, everyone in the 10 directions joins hands and enters the meditation on Mahakaruna. Compassion springs from the heart as pure, refreshing water, healing the wounds of life.
And now I would like to invite Mala and Amu to share No Coming, No Going in English and in Hindi. Mala, you'll have to unmute yourself. Yeah.
I'm muted by the host. No coming, no going, no after, no before. I hold you close to me. I release you to be so free. Because I am in you, and you are in me. Because I am in you, and you are in me.
Na 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 jana, na अतीत न भविष्य, पास में तुमको ले लूं आजाद, तुमको कर दूं, क्योंकि मुझ में तुम हो और तुम में मैं हूँ, क्योंकि मुझ में तुम हो और तुम में मैं हूँ.
So, dear friends, I will invite 3 sounds the bell. And then after that, if you would like, we can put on our videos and share together. Maybe I'll do it now. Maybe I'll stop the share of the video. Let me just see if I can do that. Stop share. Yeah, and then if you'd like, we can actually put on our videos so we can see each other at least a little bit. And I will then invite 3 sounds the bell, just as a way of being aware together. Thank you so much for the songs, and thank you so much for being together on this evening. And as we transition out, we'll be putting on the chant, Namo Avalokiteshvaraya. It is the chant to the Bodhisattva of great compassion, Avalokiteshvara. It is being sung by the monks and nuns of Plum Village. And it is actually very appropriate to this time where we are trying to pass our sense of compassion to all those who are suffering in this world in this time of great distress for many, many people. And for many of us, we sense of gratitude that we are well at this time, but for many, we also feel that there's a lot of suffering. So the chant of invoking Avalokiteshvara, the great Bodhisattva of compassion, is a way. If you want to stay with the song or with the chant, stay with it in a quiet way, just feeling the energy and passing it to people who you may feel maybe ill, maybe not feeling so well right now, just offering your heart and compassion to them. So I will now invite the bell, and 3 sounds the bell, and then we will play the chant. And whenever you want to transition out, please feel free to transition out. See you soon. So friends, as you carry your candle out, you can hear the sound of this chant. tone is ringing.
Bye.